All right.
Welcome back to Contacts. We are joined today by Rob Hanmer, head basketball coach at Rancho Mirage High School, golf coach, and I'm sure he wears a few other hats. Coach, thanks for being here today.
Appreciate you having me. Looking forward to talking to you.
Fantastic. Can't wait to jump in. Why don't you take us through your background as a coach? How did you end up coaching? What got you into the business? How did you get your first job and any subsequent jobs?
I am the oldest of four boys, and my dad coached all of us in sports. So I kind of knew as a middle school, high schooler that I enjoyed sports, and my dad made coaching look fun. He was the guy that took you to ice cream and passed out M&Ms after victory. And it was always something that I enjoyed and knew that it was a future plan for me. And then I grew up in Newbury Park, and Newbury Park High School had some unbelievable coaches when I was there. Ken Cook and George Hurley were football coaches, and they all had kids that were my age. So I ended up at their house or went water skiing with them. Glenn Herrick's one of my best friends, and his dad, Jim Herrick, was the head coach at Pepperdine and UCLA. Tom Asbury lived in Newbury Park. Steve Aggers, that was the LMU coach for a while, was in Newbury Park. Jack Willard, who's the football coach at Camarillo. I mean, we just had a ton of role models that made coaching look like a great lifetime of living. And my dad's one of those guys that worked really, really hard. He owned the Goodyear store in Ventura, and he worked 7 days a week, 12 hours a day. And to me, teaching and coaching seemed like a better lifestyle choice. So right after high school, I started coaching my little brother's little YMCA basketball team and had a lot of success. So I got the travel team and had fun with that. Ended up going to school at Cal Poly San Luis Obispo, and I got really lucky. Tim Dignan, who played for Coach Popovich at Pomona Pitzer, was the head coach at Arroyo Grande High School, and he hired me as a 19-year-old to coach his freshman team. And Bob Bogowski was the JV coach, whose dad was the head coach at Cabrillo JC back in the day. So I just got really lucky coaching Arroyo Grande for 3 years. High level basketball IQ on the staff. Learned a ton of stuff because where I went to school, we ran flex for 4 years. So I knew there had to be a better way. And with Coach Dignan and Coach Bogowski, I learned a ton of different ways to play basketball. Got to go to the UNLV clinics with them and just learned a ton of basketball at that stage. Lots of fun. Unfortunately, when it was time to get a job in San Luis Obispo, there was no jobs. So I applied in the desert and got really lucky getting a PE job there and got hired by Dan Moore to coach at Cathedral City. Dan Moore's claim to fame is Coach Kwame Brown in high school when he moved to South Carolina. So for me, it was polar opposites. Coach Dignan, genius, basketball IQ. You had to know 65 things at the varsity level, offenses, defenses, set plays. And then Coach Moore was the complete opposite. Keep it simple, play hard, and just compete. And so it was perfect for me in the sense that I got both sides of the spectrum for coaching. And Coach Moore knew he was leaving Cathedral City, so he kind of set me up with a job. So I got hired at Cathedral City at 23 to be the varsity coach, and was not very good that first year. I got suckered into by a league coach. We didn't have a scrimmage, so at the league meeting, he volunteered to be the scrimmage, and he kept his best player out, and we won by 30 in the scrimmage. And 2 weeks later, his best player played, and they stopped everything we were trying to do, and we lost by 20. So we were 0-10 on Christmas that first year, and my dad asked me if I was ever going to win a game as a varsity coach. So the scheduling gods hooked us up the next day, and we won 89-22. So we were 1-10, and then we lost the next 3 games because we were on the wrong side of the bracket. so so we were 1-12 going into January, and we won the 4 games that we needed to win to go to the playoffs. So it was a good learning experience. 2 years later, we ended up winning CIF. We got lucky and had an unbelievable sophomore class and brought them all up to varsity as sophomores. And by the time, well, their junior year, they won CIF, and then their senior year, we were really good and off and rolling. So 2008-9, I took a break to coach my son's youth football, flag football team, soccer, baseball. Probably the best coaching experience of my life, dealing with crazy youth parents. I now see why they act the way they act when they get to high school. And then 2013, I came back to Cathedral City and parlayed that into opening up the new school in our district, Rancho Mirage High School. And I've been there ever since.
What a story. It's really interesting in the path of, landing your first job at 23, a few years later being really, really good, and then taking a break, because we all get to that point at some time in our career, but going into coaching your kids in youth flag football and other things, and mentioning that was the best coaching experience you had, is fascinating, because I had a similar experience in coaching my children throughout their youth sports. And what you can learn by doing that, I think, is often understated and underrealized, and would be something that I think all of us should do, even if it's not our own kids, because it helps you reset a little bit and see some things that maybe you weren't seeing in your first go round. So with that in mind, and you coming back to be the head coach after a couple of years off, you've got a couple different looks at this, but what did you realize that you still needed to figure out when you became a head coach at 23, after you took a little break, and then when you shifted to Rancho Mirage? So you have 3 different lenses on this. What do you have to offer there?
The best part about Rancho Mirage is we got to build it from ground zero. I mean, at that point, I was obviously confident in our philosophy and the way we did things. It was about putting the right pieces in place at Rancho Mirage High School as far as the people to be successful. Obviously, I'm up to like 5 or 6 principals now. Every principal you have can completely change the trajectory of your athletic department or your school. And the first principal at Rancho Mirage was unbelievably positive about sports and just did a fantastic job of setting the school up for athletic success. I think the biggest change from early in my career to Rancho Mirage was just understanding, kids have families, and families are sometimes going to affect their ability to perform, their ability to make it to practice. I think I had a much better understanding that, if my kid is not feeling well, maybe going to flag football practice isn't that high of a priority on the list. And as a 23-year-old coach, if a kid's missing practice, I mean, we lost a game in Cathedral City because we had the stupid rule of you missed 3 practices, you had to sit out a quarter. Well, Caleb Gervin, the best player to ever play in the Valley, missed 3 practices, and they were all family related. And I set him out the first quarter, and we're down 15 at the end of 1, and we lose by 2. And my buddy Greg Coombs is thanking me for sitting him out because I was not smart enough to not have that role. So I think from 23 to 32, your rules get less and less, and you tend to make decisions based on what's best for the kid versus what's best for you. And I think you just, with maturity, you get better at those decisions.
Is there anything that you can put your finger on in any of those 3 experiences that you can offer as, this was super important when I was 23. This was super important when I was 32. This is super important now as I go about my day to day for people that are potentially stepping into a new job as a head coach or even as an assistant, that, your hair was kind of blown back and you didn't realize what you had signed up for?
I think if you want to be successful, you're gonna have to put in time. I mean, there's just no ifs, ands, or buts about it. If you're not willing to work at anything, you're not gonna be as successful as you should be. Um, Obviously, we're both people that love to run tournaments, and if you're gonna run a tournament, you're gonna put a lot of time into it. And if you're going to run a basketball program or a golf program, you're going to put a lot of time into it. I don't think I understood the amount of time it would really take. And then when you have a wife and kids, I think time management gets easier, and time management, you get better at it as you mature. Uh, I think I think the days of 3-hour practices are probably gone for most of us if you have children living at your house. I can't believe, with COVID going on, how many meals I've cooked, because it's payback for how many meals I didn't cook while I was practicing. I would just roll in from practice and dinner's on the table. Here we go. But the last 6 months, I think I've made up for that just a little bit. So I just, to me, the biggest takeaway is, your time management has to improve the longer you coach.
Absolutely. What do you think is the best thing you do in your program that you've either brought with you throughout, you've developed, you've stolen, that has the largest ripple effect on your culture?
I'm a person that hires way too many coaches. Everybody makes fun of me because I'll roll into Stevenson High School and my staff is 10 strong, and I left 5 coaches at home. So, I'm that guy. But I'm just a huge believer in getting good people to work with good kids. And I've been burned a couple times. I got burned last year, and it happens. But I cannot tell you how many 65, 70, 75, 80-year-old guys that I've hired that will do anything for me, will do anything for our basketball program, will do anything for our kids, just because they want to be involved and have something to look forward to every day. With that, we organize our practices. 25 years ago, I read a book from some lady, I think her name's Jan Lahody. She coaches girls basketball in Texas. And I don't know how I found this book, but she does a great job of explaining on how to use your facilities to run stations and get reps. So we, on a typical Sunday nights in the spring, summer, and fall, we'll have 10 to 20 adults running stations at Rancho Mirage High School, and we'll have 2 to 3 kids in a group. So I can teach a person how to run a station, and they're doing it 10 times. I can teach somebody how to teach a skill. But I think the best thing I do is I let coaches tell me I'm passionate about post moves. Okay, well, let me see what your post move looks like. And, we might critique it, and it might be closer to Coach Dignan's post move than Coach Moore's post move. But, I think I do a really good job of hiring coaches that want to work with kids, and then organizing our practices in such a way where they actually do get to coach. We do a ton of fundamental skills, ton of station work. And in that book, she talks about using your foyer. We use our dance room for all of our dribbling and passing drills, just to make smaller groups. I tell this story pretty often. There's a guy that took over Cathedral City while I was on my break. And I walk in the gym and he's got 22 kids doing layups on one basket. And I just walked right over and said, dude, you want to make this twice as good? We can make this drill twice as good right now. Split them in half and use both baskets. And his question was, well, how do I watch that? And I was like, come on, dude, really? You stand in the middle and you chirp at both sides. You can do this. But it was eye-opening to him because he had come from programs where the varsity team practiced together, the JV team practiced together, and the freshman team practiced together. And you had your little 10 or 12 kids, and that's all you worked with. And I'm a huge program guy. We have program practices almost all the time. We're lucky we have 2 gyms now, so we can start everybody together and then split them up, or I'll send the younger kids home. But I just think using our facilities correctly to let people coach kids has been the best thing we've done everywhere I've been.
Yeah, I think the creativity shines out, right? And how many people would think to use your dance room or your foyer or find some other place, the wrestling room when I was at El Camino, to try to get some extra work in while the other team is using the gym, which is often the case for us indoor sports where the facilities are limited. You have 5 teams here in one gym. What do? Right. So we had some outdoor courts up on the tennis courts the last couple of years to try to get additional space. But the other thing I thought was really not interesting, but I would say validating is your comment about, getting as many good people around students as you can. And we've been fortunate the last 3 or 4 years since I took over as the athletic director to have a partnership with the Naval Postgraduate School. So we get all these military officers that come and, give us a season. Yeah. But having those type of people, professionals, discipline around your kids has been unbelievable. And so I think that is something that people can definitely take away. You coach the golf team, and having been at multiple schools, having a coaching tree like you mentioned, I'm sure you've had the opportunity to see not just other basketball coaches, but other coaches in general, other sports. You're coaching a different sport. What have you learned watching other teams, both basketball and non-basketball teams, that you've been able to implement on your own team?
To me, organization, you can tell a guy when he's organized right away. We were really good in 1998, and we were playing in the 5th place game at the Best of West tournament. And it was 10 a.m. at some crappy YMCA, and we're playing Frank Alaco's De La Salle team. And we're rolling in sweats, just pissed that we're playing at 10 a.m., last day of the tournament in a YMCA with a rubber floor. And Alaco walks in his 3-piece suit, and his warm-up was unbelievable. And we got our asses kicked, excuse my French. But I mean, they won that game in warm-ups. And, I had seen Ventura College with Phil Matthews warm up without a basketball and how intense that was. The organization of Alaco at De La Salle, we stole that. And ever since then, we have a scripted warm-up. And that's probably the favorite thing about the principal at Rancho Mirage when he hired me. He said when he saw our first warm-up, he goes, I knew we were fine. He goes, I knew you could coach. And just something so simple as just how you organize your warm-up drill. We always laugh. If the other team's standing at the free throw line and doing that little circle free throw line with 4 minutes to go before a game, we can pretty much chalk up the W before the game even starts. It's like, why are they like resting right now? I mean, what? So, but I mean,
and on that, just to jump in, I was going to bring that up myself, and it's not judgment on that as a drill. I look at it and it's like, I'm going to get more reps, and our kids are going to get more reps because you have now restricted your entire team to one person working at a time.
Yeah, I just, and you see it all the time, and it's just like, what are you doing? My first year at Rancho Mirage, we were the JV team. We only had JV at that point, freshmen and sophomores. And to go through that year coaching against JV coaches, I think there was 3 games all year where you made an adjustment and the other coach knew you made the adjustment. And it's just, I mean, we played against each other last year. I mean, it's a lot more fun playing chess, and I'm doing something to you and you're doing something back to me. And when I'm watching other sports, My son, his junior and senior year in high school, he got a film uh, Friday Night Lights football for the local TV station. So I was his chauffeur. So we went to probably 13 or 14 different high schools in those 2 years watching Friday nights. And to watch the pageantry at some schools on a Friday night for football versus other schools was eye opening. And just how you treat guests on the sideline. I mean, at Ranch Marsh High School, every guest gets a pass that says you're a guest on the sideline at Ranch Marsh High School. And then you go to other high schools and, you got the ADs telling you that you need to go somewhere else and you're not welcome here. And then the next guy, he's got a cooler and he's pulling stuff out for you and you need any food. And it's just how you treat people. It was really, really good for me to see how, because obviously football is a huge deal for everybody, but to see the event of football at so many different places. There was a small school up in Yucca Valley. They pull the cars in on the end and they flash the lights and they're tailgating. And I mean, I'd never been to anything like that. And it was really cool. Uh, Organization's huge. How people are treating people. I love watching people's benches. My brother had tickets to the Golden State Warriors, and we sat right behind the bench. He was the head coach at Stanford, big guy.
Mike Montgomery.
Yeah, it was his last year. And I mean, I just watched how they acted on the bench. And I mean, he was getting fired. There was just, I mean, it was done, it was over. And to see that up close and personal at the professional level, I couldn't believe it. I mean, it was just eye opening how dramatic it was that guys were miserable and assistant coaches were talking behind it. I mean, it was I still can't believe it to this day.
Well, let's go back to golf here for a second, because I was fortunate enough to coach the golf team at El Camino for 5 years, and I remember being at one of those Las Vegas basketball clinics, and Roy Williams was talking about his path and made some offhanded comment: if you ever get the opportunity to be the high school golf coach, jump at it. So the next year I had the opportunity, I jumped at it, and it was, a labor of love more than anything else. And I like to call myself the golf scheduler, because I wasn't doing a whole lot of coaching. It was like, hey, what do I do about this? Go see your swing coach. But I was the greatest scheduler in Northern California. What did you learn while you've been coaching golf that you've been able to translate, or vice versa, from basketball to golf, as you try to navigate that world, because they're different?
Yeah. Well, the first time I was the golf coach at Cathedral City from 98 to 2002, and I didn't know anything about golf. I mean, zero. So you ain't a kidding when you're talking about golf scheduling. And I think I was at that same Roy Williams speech in Vegas. For me, it gave me tremendous confidence because I was able to teach and coach a sport that I didn't know anything about. And I was able to organize my kids to be successful. And the kids were so happy to have somebody that cared and that wanted to be there and wanted to get better. And we had sweet gear and we got the Pro Vs with the logos on them. And there was so much pride in that hadn't been there. So for me, the first time coaching golf was just, a phenomenal sense of, damn, I know I can coach basketball, but I think if you're a teacher and a coach, you can coach anything. And I definitely took a lot of confidence out of the first run. Last December, right before the big Christmas tournament, our golf coach had to give it up. And random email, and I emailed back, hey, I think I could be the golf coach. I just got to ask my wife for permission. And I wasn't sure what the answer was going to be. And she was fired up. She was like, yes, that would be perfect for you. You need to do something besides basketball 24/7. And we had a fantastic 3 weeks before COVID hit. You're right. Find a good swing coach. I brought in a golf professional to help teach the kids. And we had an unbelievable schedule set up, and unfortunately got wiped out. But The good news is I've been working on my golf game, and I got some new clubs, and I feel much more confident in my golf coaching ability at this point,
It's time.
post COVID.
Well, I'll tell you what, I'll give the listeners this nugget. What I learned coaching golf that I think applies to whatever sport you want to coach. And you're dead right. If you can teach, if you can coach, it doesn't really matter what the discipline is if you're willing to put the work in and figure it out, right? So both
Yeah.
of us coming in casual golfers, but we can coach golf because we know where we're strong, we know where we're weak. We're not going to try to overstep that. We're going to supplement with people who can help us. But what I did take away from that was the idea of course management, right? To work backwards from the pin to the tee box, which
Yeah.
isn't something that you go out as a casual golfer and do. And then
Yeah.
how does that apply to, say, basketball, or when I was coaching travel softball, and the strategy of mapping out, reverse engineering, right, your goal was not something I had before I started coaching golf. How would you say, from, being a 23-year-old head coach, actually forget that, a 19-year-old freshman coach, to now, however old we are, that we don't need to share with the world, but how has your approach to coaching changed?
Um, at 19, I was beyond intense, and I would get after people a lot. um, because I mean, that's my personality. I still am intense. I just pick my spots a lot better. Uh, I, I, it's about people, and not everybody's the same person. Going back to having lots of different coaches, if you have lots of different personalities, you have an ability to get to different pieces of your team. Like I have a sweetheart of a coach that's 86. He's been with us for 7 years, and he gives everybody hugs and kisses. Well, that's not my role as the head coach. When I was the freshman coach at 19, I was the young buck that got to come up and high five kids and, hey, you can do this. And um, I just think with maturity, you learn to pick your spots more, and you learn that it's not life or death. Nobody really cares how many championships that I've won or been a part of. They want to know what. I've been golfing with a bunch of former players, and to listen to the stories that they tell about their experience playing for Coach Hanmer 20 years ago is absolutely hilarious. I mean, I'm like, damn, I really did that. Like, yeah, you really did that. So I think just growing up and understanding, I had a couple kids at the Christmas tournament tell me that I was soft. And I was like, you have no idea. I am beyond butter at this point, but you know, I think times have changed too. I mean, in the late 90s, I mean, we had kids that didn't have cell phones. I mean, you might have a pager go off every once in a while, but you weren't dealing with the technology stuff that we're dealing with right now. And the attention span is just really, really difficult in today's world. So I think I'm a lot more understanding of what kids and people are going through just because I have more experiences. And I've coached lots of kids with broken homes and lots of kids with financial issues. And I've been lucky and I've had the other end of the spectrum, but there's issues there too. So I just think I'm a lot more mature in regards to dealing with people. And my biggest advice for young people is just you got to care. I mean, you got to let kids know that you're there for them, and if you're the coach, you can't be their best friend, but they got to know that if they need you, you're available.
Yeah, and I
and
think that's hard as a young coach. And I remember distinctly my first year as a head coach at El Camino High School. We were playing Kennedy, and Ron McKenna was like Sacramento legend and older coach, probably 5 years from retirement, and they just boat raced us. And I asked him after the game, I'm like, Coach, how do you get your guys to do X? And he was like, listen, son, he's like, I have no problem telling people exactly what they can and cannot do.
yeah,
And as a young coach, right, defining roles isn't your strong suit.
definitely.
Figuring out that players are different. They have different strengths. As much as you want to create this, equitable world where everybody has the same, it's just not real. You don't have the skill set to see the shades of gray. And I think you mentioning, as you mature, you realize everybody's different. And the idea of having a bunch of adults around to meet those kids where they are has been really important in your evolution as a coach. And also realizing that I might not be the right person to get through to kid X, but as long as they know I care about them and I have, somebody else on my staff that can caretake that individual, then we're serving that student. And that's just something that I don't even know if you can tell people, but you can tell them. And until they have the opportunity to really embrace that or experience it, it's just hard to conceptualize.
Yeah, it's a challenge. Coaching is a challenge, and I mean that's what's attractive about it is it's you're dealing with people, and you know you can have a kid be the greatest kid in the world, and something happens, and now he's your worst kid on your team. And if you as the leader of the team don't figure out what caused that flip, we had a kid, he had been told his whole life he was getting a D1 football scholarship, and he was the greatest kid in the world. And all of the scholarship came out December 15th, and he didn't get one. And he became the biggest jerk on the planet because he was absolutely upset that he did not get his football scholarship. And he ruined about 3 weeks of our season. And when we finally figured out what the problem was, I said, listen, dude, you're gonna be okay. Yeah, you're gonna have to go to JC, but you're gonna get to go play somewhere. And you're good enough and you're a great kid. But man, that was a long 3 weeks, and it wasn't fun for him and it wasn't fun for us. But we finally figured out what the root of the problem was, and helped him realize it wasn't the end of the world.
Mm-hmm.
So,
well, I think that's the other thing that we learn as we grow as well. And you mentioned the technology and what we have today, what we didn't have then, which doesn't change the fundamental need of checking in with your kids, knowing what's going on with them, seeing them on a day-to-day basis so you can read the tea leaves, which is hard in the remote setting that we're all currently in. But those things never go out of style, right? You don't ever outgrow having a feel for the people that you're with, so that you can put basketball aside or golf aside when it's about people. And you brought up the advice that you would give others, but what advice would you give yourself if we had an opportunity to go back and talk to you as you were getting into coaching and teaching?
Good question. I I think just trust yourself. I I I think when you're young, you're trying to prove to people that you can X and O. You deserve to be where you're at. When you're young, all the parents are older than you, so they think they're wiser than you. Uh, you know, I mean, I coach kids that are 4 or 5 years younger than me. And, we were in the same music group. We were in the same age bracket as far as things we like to do. Now, I was asking my PE classes today, what their favorite music group was, and I didn't know any of them. I was like, oh my God, that's not my thing. I could tell you the 80s, baby. So, yeah, I think just know that it's going to work out okay. And I'm always one of those glasses half full, and I know that I've had a plan for my life. I mean, I knew I was going to be the Rancho Mirage basketball coach, you know 12 years before they even started building the school. I mean, that was, I had mapped it all out, and I knew they were going to build an unbelievable facility. And I set goals and I have dreams, and that was on the place. And I think as a 19, 20, 21-year-old, you're just trying to find you. And I think you got to have confidence that if you're a worker and you're a good person, that things are going to work out for you. There's so much information out there with the internet we used to read books up the kazoo. I mean, I got lucky. Somebody handed me The Magic of Thinking Big by David Schwartz. And it's an old book, but in there, he told me to put 10% of my salary away every single month. And, when you get old, you'll have a nest egg. And now that I'm seeing old, I'm like, damn, I'm glad I did that. If I could go back 25 years ago and tell myself to invest in Apple and Microsoft, I might be in a different lifestyle right now, but that would be something I would highly recommend is, plan.
Forrest Gump, just, hey, make sure you buy the Apple stock before Apple was even founded as a company in that movie.
Oh, just I tell people that time flies, and it flies even faster when you have kids. And I mean, nobody would have believed that at 20 you're going to be 40 someday soon. And I got my whole class of 98, my CIF championship basketball team, they're all turning 40 right now. And it's hilarious watching all their Facebook posts about turning 40. And I'm like, well, wait, 50's coming. And it'll be here before you know it. So enjoy life, and it's gonna get here whether you want it to or not.
One last question that I've never asked before, but I just thought of it when you mentioned that book and you mentioned how we used to read a ton and how the internet has made information publicly traded commodities, so to speak. What is the best resource that you have come across lately that you can offer others?
Well, Bob Bugowski and I used to follow Eric Musselman's blog post, and the stuff he put on there was unbelievable. And it was kind of before Twitter. But what I like about Twitter is you can follow people that allow you to get to information that you're looking for. So like the Texas A&M women's basketball coach, I think it's Bob Starkey. I mean, he puts unbelievable stuff to read on Twitter almost every day. There's a dude in Florida that does an unbelievable job of putting out videos and clips and articles. Todd Wolfson out of St. Francis, he has something witty every single day. So for me, I'm a phone guy, and I just love having my core group hit my Twitter feed, because it's going to take me in a tangent somewhere that I'm reading about some volleyball coach in Southwest Florida and how she got her team to be successful. And I'm one of those people that's a lifelong learner. I love reading, I love listening, I love talking to people, and trying to figure out how to be successful. I've been really lucky my whole life. I've always had older, wise eyes on my coaching staff. And if you listen to old people, you can learn a lot of information that will make your life easier down the road. And I know people sometimes are nervous about old people, but if you take the time to get to know them and listen, they will give you some nuggets and some truths that will never go away.
Absolutely. I think that's great advice. And we're going to close this out by referring to them as more experienced people, so that
as we head that direction.
Offend anybody, but thanks for being here today. It's been fun. Looking forward to seeing you on the other side.
Definitely appreciate you.